Hello, hello, and welcome to today's episode of Saddest Night Out. My name is Roy, and I am the host of this daily podcast, and it's primarily about music and creative culture in London. And I've got 2 live shows coming up in the very near future. The first is Tuesday, the 17th of September, and that's at Road Trip and the Workshop on Old Street. The second is on Sunday, the 22nd of September, and that's at Paper Dress Vintage in Hackney. Both events are free entry, and if you go to facebook.com/saddest night out, you can find more details there. Both lineups for these shows are made up of people who have been on this podcast, and our guest on today's episode is one of those performers. His name is ChrisGabriel. He is part of the lineup for my show on Tuesday 17th. And this episode is a real deep dive into his history with music and his potential future as well. We had a rehearsal Sunday just gone, and afterwards Chris and I took a little walk, and then we caught up because he's been on this podcast once before, but it was very brief and we didn't really get to find out much about him. And on today's episode, we finally rectify that. So this is me talking to ChrisGabriel by the Thames in Battersea. It was a really picturesque scene, actually. I hope you enjoy this chat, and I'll catch up with you more afterwards. You join us on a very calm and serene Sunday afternoon. We're by the Thames, by Battersea Bridge, and I'm here with an artist who will be joining me at my next live show, and whose band I just joined. Will you kindly introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi guys, my name's ChrisGabriel, and yeah, I'm here.
So we just had a rehearsal with your keyboardist and your drummer. How long have you been playing with those two?
Playing with these guys about 2 years actually. Yeah, probably about 2 years.
Who did you meet first?
I met the drummer first. His name's Darren, and we just met at open mic in South London. And yeah, literally from there, we just really liked what each other was doing. He liked my sound, and he was like, put me on board. I want to drum with you. Let's go and find what we need to find, but at the moment, like, let's just start this the way that it is.
So that was about 2 years ago when you met him. Were you already thinking about playing with a live band at that stage?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about a band. I wanted to get a whole band together, but I didn't know how to do it. I think I went on Facebook groups, I went around, but yeah, I had no idea how to do it. But like, it's in that way, it just came to me when I met Darren. Yeah,
like sometimes it can be a bit spiritual, and it seems as though when you put it out there in an almost more intangible way, the thing that you seek can rise to meet you. So you literally trying to find other musicians to play with you.
Yeah.
But in some like ethereal way, the vibe was out there that you were looking for musicians, and thus musicians came to you and wanted to join you. So Darren, the drummer, joined you first. When did you meet Cyril Lane, the keyboard player?
I met Cyril Lane at an open mic as well, and that was about. It was not long afterwards. It was probably about the May. Yeah, the May. It was about the May, and then we did the open mic. So actually, we've probably been playing. Is it 2 years? Either two. I think it is 2 years.
So
yeah.
I'm thinking like May 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about 2 years. So this is the most recent iteration of the ChrisGabriel show.
Yeah.
It's you with live musicians. But let's take it back. I am led to believe you were making music before you came to London. So when did you start making music? When were you ChrisGabriel, the artist?
When I actually became ChrisGabriel, it's weird because I actually became the artist ChrisGabriel in London, but I was making music from years ago. Probably I started rapping a good 15 years ago. But then I stopped rapping for a long time. I stopped rapping for 8 years, and I just did poetry and spoken word. So before I came to London, I'm from Birmingham. So when I was in Birmingham, I was doing a lot of poetry, a lot of spoken word. I never really did live rap or anything like that. But I always had that desire to come back to doing rap, but I didn't know quite how to do it.
So you started with rap, and you started rapping in Birmingham. Are you like born and bred in Birmingham?
Yeah, I was born and bred in Birmingham. I started rapping in Birmingham, and that was after I went to New York. I went to New York for a summer, and when I went there, it was just amazing to me because I wasn't really into rap music. I was kind of into like I was quite young, so I was just into what was on the TV, what was in the charts, you know. A lot of pop music at the time.
Is this like around 2000? Before then?
Yeah. Around 2000, 2001. Yeah, I was into so much pop music. I just really liked that, and I didn't know anything much about rap music. But then when I went to New York, they play things on the streets. They play like big hip hop beats. Jay-Z was out then, and he was very popular. And I was in Brooklyn, so like they loved Jay-Z, and they loved people like Foxy Brown. She was another rapper that was quite prominent at that time.
Was it just like a holiday in New York with your family?
Yeah, it was a holiday. But yeah, I just loved it. I just really enjoyed it. And then when I came back, I found myself wanting to get some of these artists and get their music and put it together on like playlists. Like at the time you had to put it on CDs, so yep. I wanted to burn all of these artists on CDs that I liked, from America, Brooklyn, you know, Atlanta, everywhere, that I just really liked. To put it together, and then as I'd be listening to these artists and I'd be typing their lyrics out to make sure that I could know what they were saying, I found myself wanting to write raps myself. So that's where I started. I just started after that. Probably about 3 months after I came back, I was rapping.
Wow. So yeah, I can't think of a better way to be introduced to rap and hip hop than going to New York and like going to arguably the birthplace of it and seeing it firsthand. So you come back home to Birmingham, you have an intense passion for it. Yeah. And it just feels natural to start doing it yourself. Were other people you knew doing it? Were you familiar with any kind of rap or hip hop scene in Birmingham, or were you just like, I want to do this, and then let me go out there and see where I can do it?
Yeah, no, I didn't know anybody really doing it, to be honest, in Birmingham. I just was kind of into it. I knew a few people that liked rap, but not that wrote rap. But I was like, yeah, let me do this because I'm into it and I like the way that it sounds. And so I would write raps based on my favourite artists at that time, what they were saying. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't write from my experience at all. I would just write from exactly what they were saying. I'd write about partying every night. I'd write about all the girls I was getting, which was weird because I wasn't partying every night, and I wasn't really getting any girls at that time either. But I was just like in this imaginary world where I was them, and I was writing something from their experience.
It sounds like it had a really intoxicating effect on you, because when you take something like that really to heart, you embody it. So you're rapping as if you are, I don't know, Eminem or Jay-Z. Like either you're them or you're in that crew. So the things that they're doing, you imagine that's your life, and so you rap from that perspective. So that's understandable for anyone who's taking a new start in something artistic. First, you sound like you're imitating the people you like. Did you feel a progression towards rapping as you rather than rapping as you imitating someone else?
I think when I first started rapping and listening to some of UK artists and various people that would talk about their experience, like I remember listening to this guy that said, why are all these rappers rapping American for when they ain't American born? And it really hit me. I still don't know to this day who that artist was that rapped that. But
they were talking to you. You were like, oh man, he's got me.
Yeah.
He's right. Why am I?
It spoke to me, and I was like, yeah. I put on the accent when I rap, and I talk about what they're talking about. Why don't I talk from my experience? So then that's probably one of the first times when I actually started to write raps from my own experience and think about what is my story, what do I have to bring to the table.
So before you have that almost like renaissance where you go back to the drawing board and start again and readdress your perspective, you were already writing because you really like the genre and you're writing as if you're your heroes. Yeah. Are you performing as well? Like, are you showing your raps to anyone, rapping for anyone or anything like that?
The weirdest thing is, I think the first performance that I can remember is because I went to Jamaica for 2 years, and about 2004 to about 2006, and I never performed before that. But then when I went to Jamaica, I went to a school and they had a showcase there, so I performed at that showcase some of my raps, and it didn't go down the greatest. People were like, oh, that's cool. But in Jamaica, they weren't really into like rap music in the schools. They listened to it, but they weren't really into it. It was more like the dance hall and, you know, the DJing, the way that the Jamaicans put something across, kind of singing, rapping, but in the patois. And I couldn't do that. I could only rap, you know, just straight rap. So they were like really into the people that brought that kind of Jamaican vibe, but they kind of tolerated me and allowed me to do what I was doing. But it was a good performance. I think it was good. Like, my friends thought it was alright. But yeah.
I mean, it's understandable if you weren't quite there yet, considering how new you literally were starting while you were there. And it sounds as though for someone else that might have been enough to say, right, I'm not doing that again. I didn't really go down well. Maybe it's not for me. But clearly for you, that lit a spark and you found this is what you wanted to do. Did that help you to double down on your belief that this is what you should be doing?
I mean, at the time, because they didn't like it so much, I just kept doing it, and they'd be like giving me like, oh, okay, yeah, it's all right. I say that my friends liked it because, like, now looking back and talking to our friends, we can talk about it, but at that time nobody let me know, oh, that was really cool. So I kind of didn't, I just did it because I liked it at that time. I didn't really think about are people interested in this. I just kept pursuing it because it was something I just like to do. I like to rap. Yeah.
So after Jamaica for 2 years, so around 2006, you come back to Birmingham, and is that when you have that realization that you should tell your story and your perspective?
When I came back to Birmingham, and I was already, because I did a through trip, so I went back to Birmingham through America. So I went back to Brooklyn for 3 months, and then when I was out in Brooklyn, I was rapping a lot. I actually made a full album in a way. Like, I made a 17-track album.
Whoa.
And that was just it was just getting tracks out there one by one, and I was talking about my experience and talking about life and various things, because I was thinking at that time I started to think about life and death and like the afterlife and faith and all of these things, and the way that, because I used to be involved in some gangs in Birmingham, so I used to think about the way that some of my people that were still involved in the gangs, how things were for them, how life was kind of transient, and all of these things came out in that first CD that I made. Weirdly enough, I don't have a copy of that anymore.
Oh no.
But yeah, that's when I first started to write about what I liked. When I came back to Birmingham afterwards, and I started to talk about who I was, and I did a few performances, but then at that time I kind of, my focus has changed. I wasn't really so into music. I was more into kind of like addressing my life, because I felt like there was a lot of areas in my life that needed addressing. I was kind of thinking about my faith and various things like that. So I kind of stopped rapping not long after I got back to England. I didn't have any interest in it. I wasn't listening to rap music so much. I didn't feel to rap, so I stopped. I started to write more poetry, but yeah, I wasn't really into writing on beats.
But you still had a message you wanted to broadcast.
Yeah.
So you were still, writing was still useful to you, and performing what you'd written was useful, but rap and all that came with it, that you lost interest in all of that.
Yeah. So I'd still write, but I would write things off of beats, and I'd write poetry, but I didn't know I was writing poetry at that time. I thought I was just writing raps a cappella, and it was only when one person came up to me one time, I did a performance of an a cappella rap, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, that spoken word that you did was really good." I was like, "What is this spoken word? I don't know what spoken word is." But okay, thanks for liking it, you know.
Was that back in Birmingham then?
No, that was fast forward when I actually went to university, and I went to London, and that's when somebody started saying these things that I was writing was spoken word.
Okay, so you went through quite a lot before you came to London then. So there was Brooklyn, there was back to Birmingham, there was Jamaica, there was Brooklyn again, back to Birmingham, and London. That's when, so you're arriving in London, writing and performing, but not really calling it rap. Yeah. And then someone else makes you aware that, it's spoken word, it's poetry.
Yeah.
So, but eventually you find your way back to rap. So how does that happen?
Well, after that point, when that person said that it was spoken word, like for a good 8 years, I was doing that, just into the spoken word scene. And then I don't know what happened. I do know what happened. Mm-hmm. I had a dream. Like, this was like probably about 6 years in. I had a dream where I was in the studio and I was making tracks. I was making a track with Rick Ross, and then we were sitting there, and Rick Ross was just happy, and like it's like there was this light on his head, and he was just really taking it in, and then I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, like in my dream I did a track with Rick Ross. That's so strange, because I think at that time I wasn't into Rick Ross. I wasn't into any of that kind of music, talking about
riches and living the good life and all that kind of thing.
Anything to do with like trapping or anything like that. I wasn't into that. So I was like, me do a track with Rick Ross. When I woke up from that dream, I was like, nah, that is something that I wouldn't want to do. Like, I'm not really interested in that kind of rap. But then I think after that, my mind started thinking about rap a little bit more, and then as I would do poetry, I would start trying to rap on beats again, and it just started there. I saw some nights that were advertised for rap / spoken word, so I said, let me go to these nights. I saw some nights where there was hip-hop cyphers. I said, let me go to these nights, and I just was so impressed by the culture again of people rapping. I was like, no, this is inspiring me. I want to rap again. And gradually I started writing raps again and getting back into the scene.
So how much time was there between that revelation and then meeting Darren and starting to form a live band?
That was probably about a year. Was it about a year? Yeah, about a year or between 6 months and a year. Yeah.
So in that time, you're back to writing and you're calling it rap. You're back in that world.
Yeah.
And you found a community to perform in as well.
Yeah.
What about recording?
For recording, I actually recorded a rap during my 8 years hiatus. I recorded one at a studio with my friend, because he was a rapper and he continued to rap even through that period. And when I came to London, because I knew him from the time I was in university, because we talked at that time. And after I came back down to London, because I went back to Birmingham after I finished university, and then I came back down. And when I came back down, he was going to the studio he took me to, and that's when I started recording again. I recorded one track then because he was like, yeah, do something. And I had this track from like literally from the time before I'd started the hiatus about Birmingham. I said, let me finally actually put lyrics on this track, because like I need to do that. So I did that track, and then I went through the rest of my years, probably about 2-3 more years without rapping. And then, but when I started rapping again, I knew exactly what studio to go to because of that that encounter with my friend at that studio. So I just asked him for the details again. I went down there and started trying things out.
Is that where you can experiment finished tracks? Because do you produce your own songs? How do you go about getting the instrumentals together?
Well, the first, like, this was around 2016. The first track that I rapped on, apart from that one that I mentioned before, was something produced by a friend for another friend, and I kind of stole the beat from that other friend, because I was like, I just really like this beat, let me rap on it. Please let me take that and rap on it, because they just used it for one show and then they never used it again. It's like the beat was made specifically for their set for a show, because I had a friend who played the sax, and he played the sax into this beat, and he made it so they could do their performance. And then, but they were a poet, so they didn't really use the beat after that. I said, let me take the beat and let me make a track. And then I made a track called Sightless from that track, and that's how I started rapping on these beats. And then I got to know poets and various people that made beats, so then that started me rapping on beats again. Like, I just used the beats from friends or beats from that were popular at the time, or beats from old people that I knew from the scene, like in the years previous, that were still making beats. I'll be like, can I rap on your beat? Can I do this? And that's how it is.
So you cast the net wide among everyone that you know, and just try and get as many beats as you can, and then pick the ones you like best. So there was the album in America, in Brooklyn, the 17 track, which hopefully exists somewhere on the internet. Maybe if anyone's listening to this and knows how to get hold of that album, bring it back to us. Let's let Chris get it out there again. Then there was the one track during the hiatus, that slight break from the break. And then you come to London, you come back into rapping. So what have you got recorded since then? What have you been putting out there?
Since then, I did an EP. Not long after I started to get back into the scene. I did one. I think it took me 6-7 months to make, and that was half my own beats and half beats of people that I was just really interested in. When I say my own beats, I mean like beats that were made for me. And the first EP, it was a half and half, so it was a mixtape, kind of, because it was a plethora of different rap beats, original and non-original. And but I was just talking about the things that I knew, my life at that time, and
the story so far, essentially. And I'm guessing that was a SoundCloud thing. It was partly SoundCloud. What else did I put it on? I mean, I put it on this website called Dat Piff. So it was like on a mixtape website, and that was pretty good in terms of exposure. So that was the first EP. Have there been any more since?
I've put out an EP this year. I put out 2 EPs this year.
Okay.
So
get you.
I've been working quite hard this year. So I put out a 4-track EP in April, and then I put out a 4-track EP in July, and they together made the Discourse EP. But one was called Discourse, one was called Discourse Reloaded. And I just experimented with different types of beats in this new EP, because the first EP that I did was all old school kind of rap style, But this EP is heavily trap focused, because I just really liked trap beats and rapping a bit faster.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into saying, okay, I wanna do a whole EP that is just more fast rap, more cool, more suave, more debonair, that more soulful, and that's what got me doing the EP that I did last. So I have 2 EPs that I put out basically. I have kind of a half EP that I put out, but yeah, it wasn't like official like the other 2.
So that kind of brings us up to present day. You've released 2 EPs. You've got a band together featuring yours truly on bass guitar. I'm not too shabby if I do say so myself. And I understand there's a trip to the another trip to the US, pretty much imminent. When are you heading out there, and what are you hoping to do while you're out there?
Well, I'm heading out there in when am I heading out there? In a month, actually. About 5 weeks. And I'm planning literally to just immerse myself in the scene. I'm out in LA. I just want to really understand the culture, root myself there, and get the life of the people that just are on the ground, you know. Because what people hear about LA, what we all know about LA is the flashing lights, the glitz, the glam. But not so many people, even though we do to an extent, we know about like the gangster lifestyle and the hoods and various things, and certain things about the normal life. But I feel like there's so much more, like, because I've been to LA a few times and I saw so much more in the story than just gangsters and flashing lights. Like there's stories of just people doing their day-to-day, stories of just the chill backness, and I wanted to learn about some of these stories, tell some of these stories, and just really engross myself in the culture.
So where can those of us who aren't going to LA as well, where can we follow along the journey? Where can people find you online? Well,
I have a website. It's ChrisGabriel selections.com. So Gabriel like the angel, and selections, you know. So ChrisGabrielSelections.com. I got Instagram, ChrisGabriel Music, and most other things are Chris Gabriel Music. Like my Facebook is Chris Gabriel Music, my SoundCloud is Chris Gabriel Music. So yeah, you can follow the journey, and yeah, get you a little taste of LA as well.
Yeah, we can all try and feel like we're in LA with you via the Instagram. Chris, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for agreeing to play my show on Tuesday the 17th of September, Road Trip and the Workshop, and I hope you have a great trip to LA as well. And I look forward to when you return so we can see what's happened next in the story of Chris Gabriel. Yes. Thank you very much, man.
No worries.
And that was that. Thank you very much, Chris, for your time. It was great to finally really catch up with you and find out quite a lot about you that I didn't already know, like how many times you've been to America, that you have essentially a full album recorded that is just somewhere out there in the ether. And hopefully someday it might resurface so we can all find out what you were getting up to way back in the day. Again, another artist who took a bit of a hiatus from creating the art they were initially creating and then eventually found their way back to it. It's interesting. I think it's easy to take for granted that rap music is essentially poetry. So if you take the instrumental, if you take the beat away, you do have spoken word. And it's interesting that Chris was essentially surprised by that term, by someone else describing his work to him. But he really is a very soulful and intuitive performer. He was feeling a little under the weather when we recorded this conversation. And in fact, I was particularly tired as well. So everything might sound that much more laid back, but what we were talking about was no less interesting. In fact, funnily enough, he told me he wasn't feeling well, but he came to my open mic on Friday, the Friday before this episode was recorded. And then he did a freestyle where the only backing track was me drumming on the cajon. And I couldn't help but think, for someone who's not feeling too well, whose voice is a little bit weak, it's interesting that you chose to perform in such a way where your voice really takes center stage. But I am sure by the time his show rolls around, he will be feeling in tip-top shape, as will I be when I take up the bass guitar as part of his backing band. And I will, of course, put links to where you can find out more about him in the notes for this episode. As for me, I've had a few rehearsals with my backing band, and I am very excited about these shows. Once again, Tuesday, 17th of September, at Road Trip and the Workshop. That's a show that I'm putting on. And the other artists include Lou and, as you've heard, ChrisGabriel. And then Sunday, 22nd of September, that's a show in support of Its Own Animal, who's releasing a new album called Ammonite. And that show will have a lineup including myself, as loads of Japanese bands, Juliet and Nanette, and Delilah Black. Go to facebook.com/saddest night out for more details about both of those events. In the meantime, thank you all, or maybe it's both, maybe there's only two of you listening. Thank you both, you two listeners, for listening. Thank you again, ChrisGabriel, for your time, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Take care.